What is up, guys, and welcome to the Meeple Minded podcast, the podcast where we talk all things tabletop gaming. My name is Jason.
And I'm James.
I'm dying, James.
You are.
I am. I've got the man flu.
Yeah, I have the man flu.
I have the man flu. You best stay over that side of the table there. It's a bit safer over there. I can't promise, however, that I'm going to projectile cough in your general direction. Because I'm being nice. I'm looking at you when I'm talking to you. But
Thanks.
The downside is if I cough, it's coming straight your... You could do with some time off work, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, lifting the mic up, are we? Yes, you can't hide behind that mic, James. How have you been this week?
I can try.
You can.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
Work.
I understand you're working a lot extra at the moment.
Yes.
Is there a particular reason for that?
Games Expo.
Well, yeah, that is coming. It is coming, and hopefully this weekend we're looking at getting some hotels booked.
Yes. Hence the overtime.
Fingers crossed, yeah. Because they've very nicely put their prices up this year, and not by a small amount. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But that'll be your first expo, James.
It will, so I want money.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to end up buying quite a bit?
No.
No?
No.
What do you want the money for then?
The hotel.
Oh, I mean, that's in advance, though.
It's still expensive.
Yeah, you're going to be spending a lot of money while you're there. You know that, right?
No.
Games Workshop are there with 30k.
Stop it. We're potentially getting the train, Jason. I have to keep in the back of my head that whatever I buy needs to come back on the train.
True. Yeah, so there's a good reason for us to not get the train, so I can finally get you to put your hands in your pocket. So yeah, I think that's going to be what we'll do.
Even if I went to Expo on a mad spending spree, you'd still beat me to all the stalls.
Oh, of course I will.
Because you know the layout.
Well, I mean, hopefully they'll change it, but yeah. Yeah, I do. And I know exactly where the Games Workshop stall is, so I'll just divert off that way. It's like, oh, look, James. Oh, we've lost James. Right, cool. I can go and secretly spend some money somewhere else.
I can see you, ching, ching, ching.
Don't make me laugh, James. Laughing is not allowed today, because I will just cough my half a lung. Games, James. What have we been playing this week?
Unmatched.
We've played Unmatched. We played the Jurassic Park Unmatched. Your first experience
We did.
of Unmatched and that particular game. So what did you think?
It was fun.
Initial thoughts.
It was fun.
Yeah, good. Played After the Empire again.
We did.
This time we played it with the correct rules.
Yes.
How did you find that in comparison to the game that we played a couple of weeks ago?
Hard.
It was a lot harder, wasn't it? Although I'm pleased to say I still won.
You did. I
don't know how,
I
but I
thought
did.
my walkthrough castle was an innovative design, and I will die on this hill.
It was a pretty good drive through castle. I'll give you that. Obviously ride through in those days, but I really enjoyed probably a lot more.
Yes,
because there was far more of a challenge in this one, and as I said, I'm not really sure how I won, but apparently I did by 1 point, and you came second. Was
yes,
it you? Yeah.
I am determined. I know you did it in the first game where we weren't playing the game correctly, but we were playing this aspect of it correctly, and then I did it in this game. It's like the food mechanic might as well not be there because mercenaries.
Yeah, but there's only a limited amount of mercenaries in there, and let's be honest now, you obviously adopted that tactic.
Yep.
Throughout most of the game. I didn't in this one. I adopted different tactics, but I did adopt it somewhat in the very last turn.
Yep.
And it did hit your strategy a fair bit.
It didn't really, because the only reason I lost my walls was because of the siege card.
Yeah, it's fair.
My actual soldiers still managed. I didn't get sacked once in that game.
No.
So my soldiers successfully defended the castle. It's just the fact that the siege weapons took the walls out before the soldiers actually engaged.
Yeah, I would say if more than one or two people are buying mercenaries, though, it does hit that strategy.
Oh, it does.
A little bit.
It does, because obviously there's only a certain amount of slots. But yeah, no one else was doing it. So I was like, fine. I also had the card that made them cheaper.
You did. That really did help. And I think that's another thing with that game is remembering what your initial card draw was, because I went most of that game not using it and then realising how much it had hurt me.
Yeah, it was the lot. I only realised, I think, in the last 3 rounds of combat that, my mercenaries are actually cheaper.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and my buildings would have been cheaper. So, yeah, I think some serious changes need to be made there. And remember what they're essentially character traits, aren't they, really, by having that as your initial card.
Yes.
So, yeah, expect us to talk about that a bit more in the future. But, James, we were going to do a game highlight episode this week, and then something happened.
Something happened.
Something did happen. They did the unboxing is probably the best way to do it, of the new Star Wars Shatterpoint games from Atomic Mass Games.
They did.
I've been excited for this game for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I like Star Wars. I like miniatures games. I'm a huge fan of Marvel Crisis Protocol as well, which is their other game system that looks fairly similar. And they also announced the pre-order date and more importantly, the pre-order price. Now, let's just jump straight into it, James. $164 was what was announced for the core box.
Yep.
And then the additional squad boxes, which contain 4 miniatures, were $50. Now, I remember your reaction when I told you this, but for the lovely listeners that weren't there for that probably not very family-friendly reaction, what is your current reaction that is a bit more family-friendly?
Well, okay, so just put some context into this, because first of all, I asked the pragmatic question of what you're getting for your $164.
Yes, so to cover that, you're going to be getting 16 miniatures. However, one of the things that are classed as miniatures is that it's a miniature base, but it's got 3 B1 battle droids on each of those bases. So 20 miniatures at a push, if you really want to argue it, and some scenery, obviously your core rules, your movement tools, your dice, all of that kind of jazz, everything you need to get you set up in the game.
Yep. Then I went on to Google and did a currency conversion so that I actually understood effectively, because quoting the price in dollars means nothing to me.
Yeah, so it's about 133, wasn't it?
I think, it came out about £133.
Yes.
And my reaction was, that's expensive. That's very expensive for what you're getting.
So I think what it's essentially done has made us ask the question is, as someone who may be new to tabletop gaming, they like Star Wars and they're thinking about, and they see the miniatures and they go, oh, that actually looks pretty good. I'm going to buy into this. I.e., they're coming into the hobby and then they see the price. Is that price just too much? Is it off-putting to newcomers? And I guess, is it off-putting to current players? Because I was geared up 100% to buy into this game, and I'm sitting here like, I'm not sure I can anymore. So what do you think on that? Coming at it from an aspect of a newbie to the hobby.
A newbie, I think it depends on a lot of things, doesn't it, really? Ultimately, it depends on what your disposable income level is.
I mean, that's a given, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and as to whether you think this is a grossly expensive or not, my personal aspect is coming from another miniatures game. And to me, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, is Atomic Mass makes Games Workshop look reasonable.
Yeah, it's hard not to
compare
to compare on that one, because it's not the core box. Like the core box, I know me and you differ on it a little bit here, but the core box has an element of value to it.
Yes.
So my thing is more focusing on the upgrade packs, i.e. the extra squads if you want them, which you're going to want them if you're buying into it for the IP. You're going to want because one of them's got General Kenobi in it. Of course you're going to want that. So $50 for a 4-man squad. Now I get it, skirmish game, it's a one-time purchase. They're not going to get anything else for it, and it comes with your rule cards and stuff. But we're talking about Games Workshop, who we have on this very show slated in the past for being too expensive.
Yeah.
And from memory, I'm pretty sure when we did that episode, we were talking about the 10-man squads, and they were around $55.
Yep.
For a 10 miniatures.
Yes.
Not 4. So, I mean...
Yeah, so as a comparison, the 40k 10-man tactical squad is $55. The 20-man 30k tactical squad is $80.
Yeah, that's a substantial difference.
Yeah,
really, in what you're getting within that game. And then, yeah, like I said, I get it. It's a skirmish game. They're only going to get that one purchase from you, whereas with 40k, they might get 2 boxes out of you.
It's just the amount of value in the box as well. I mean, we said $163 was about £133. The Heresy starter box, which is the one I can't help compare it to, which was £180. So, all right, it's £50 more expensive. You got 40 Marines, a character, 10 Terminators, a Dreadnought, and a whacking great tank.
Yeah.
And a 400-page hardback rule book with some, that the amount of actual value in that box is ridiculous.
See, value-wise, it is good. I'm not going to deny you on that, but even still, like, I know that 30k isn't exactly marketed to new players.
It's
but
not.
It's still someone looking at it and going, I want to get into 30k, but £180 up front, that's a whacking great amount.
Yeah.
Most people's expendable income every month is not going to be, I can justify £180 just like that.
Yep.
And it's the same with Chatterpoint. And to a degree, we're not only going to be talking about war games today, we are going to talk about board games as well.
I would also defend Games Workshop in that manner of the way they do their releases as well, because you normally get that big box is the initial release. Then 2 weeks later, you'll get the contents of that box in individual purchases. So it is down to you as to whether you want to spend that £180 up front and get everything in one big box, or buy all the bits individually, which will cost you a bit more, but you have the option to then spread that cost over.
And that is definitely something that I can personally vouch for with Atomic Mass Games is not an option.
Yeah.
They don't tend to release what's in the core box separately. And even if they did, you can't buy the rules separately.
Yeah.
The rules are in the core box. Yes, you can buy the range rulers and the movement tools and stuff like that, but the key component is the rule book, and that's only in the starter box. You could probably have a download of it somewhere, but, as of yet, we don't seem to have that for Shatterpoint. But, so, I mean, it's pretty obvious, and it's always been the case. The buy-in price for new gamers into wargaming has always been a little sort of, ouch. But, now that we're a bit more versed into like board games, I'm sitting here and looking as like, are board games that much better? Because there's more and more games that are coming out now that are in and around that £100 price mark.
Yeah.
And even higher. And we're not even talking about Kickstarter today, because that's just a whole new level. Kickstarter, for me, has normalized board games being such an expensive, production. And yeah, true enough, while we do talk about a lot of games on this show, like Acropolis, for example, in the £20 bracket, and various other games that are in that sort of cheapy range, they're not like when someone looks in getting into board games, they don't go, oh yeah, I want to get into board games because of Acropolis. They want to get into board games because they've seen someone playing Project Elite, or they've seen someone playing Arc Nova or Scythe. All these big, massive, table-sprawling behemoths with miniatures and all of that goodness. And it's like, oh, how much is that? Well, yeah, I mean, this one's going to set you back 80 to 90 quid. And then all of a sudden that big smile on the face turns to a bit of a frown going, oh, well, people always told me that board gaming was cheaper. So the question overall, James, is our entire hobby too expensive? Is it too off-putting to new blood?
I still come down ultimately on the side of no. Because all hobbies have an expensive buy-in.
I think I would agree with. Yeah, as I think we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Your golf clubs or your golf bats or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Or whatever your chosen hobby is, the startup is usually the most expensive bit of it.
Yeah. I was working out some prices earlier, to be honest. And I was sort of thinking, I was like, okay, so we've got quite a nice cinema in Crawley. And while this doesn't affect us personally, because we both have unlimited cards for a set amount per month, if we didn't have that, James, the cost to go and see a movie now, without all the fancy upgraded screens and all of that, the base ticket price is about £15 per person. So a family of four going to the cinema, you're looking at somewhere between £40 and £60 without food.
Yep.
Without, it's not including IMAX screens, it's not including 3D, none of that, none of the gimmicks, just a base 2D movie in a box standard screen. I mean, damn.
Yep.
And, that's not even a hobby, really, is it?
I was going to going back to the actual board game side of the hobby as well. There is an argument to be made that you don't actually have to buy a single thing. You don't have to part with a single penny. If you're lucky enough to have a gaming club nearby you, you go down, you befriend some board gamers, odds are one of them's got, like you, an extensive library.
Correct. Yeah, I would definitely say that, but it's more on those lines of there's a particular game you see.
Yep.
Like, for example, we'll use you as an example, Nemesis.
Yep.
Now, all right, I probably would have ended up with that game if you hadn't have got it. Let's be honest now. But you didn't have someone like me.
Yep.
And there was no one else in your group that was into spending that kind of money.
Yep.
You know, that game it's expensive.
It's expensive.
Off-putting, you know, and there's a lot of risk that comes into that. It's not like, you know, if you wanted to watch a movie, for example, all right, not a brand new movie in the cinema, but if you're buying, you know, instead of buying a DVD, you could, back in the day of Blockbuster, for example, you could rent it. And if you liked it, you'd go and buy it. Same with games, you know, and stuff like that. You could never do that with a board game or war game. It's just, no, you're paying this, whether you like it or not. And then if you don't like it, that investment it's not paid off.
Yep.
And you've essentially had a very large payment that you're now not going to get any value from whatsoever.
Yep. I think this one of the reasons why a certain miniature company that we have mentioned several times already is where it is, because all of their stores basically function as quote unquote recruitment centers where you can try the game before you splash cash on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, taking aside things like gaming conventions and that, because you know that Star Wars Shatterpoint, for example, is going to be demoed at the various gaming cons before it comes out. So there is going to be a chance to play it, but not for newbies, because newbies aren't going to go to a gaming convention.
Yep.
Because maybe they don't know about it yet. So, yeah, as for me, if I'm sitting on the outside as a brand new newbie to the potential of the hobby, and I'm sitting there going, I just can't afford this. Like, it's too much. It's too much up front. There's no real way for me to even test to see if I like what I want to play, except one. And I said this to you before we started, and it pains me to admit it, being that it's a Wizards of the Coast product. But for me, the only game that's currently available for tabletop that actually doesn't have a huge wall to scale to get into the hobby is D&D.
Yep.
Now, as someone who doesn't play it, it's really hard for me to admit that, because yes, you could go and buy the books. Yes, you could go and buy the miniatures. Or you could spend nothing at all, find yourself a good D&D group and just join in. There's no financial investment there.
Yep.
And it's still the hobby. It's still tabletop gaming.
You need some dice.
You would, but let's be honest. If you're joining a D&D group, the likelihood is someone's got some dice they can lend you if you're trying it out. You know, one shots. They're usually, you usually have dice provided to you somewhere. Would you say there's anything else that even compares to D&D?
No, but that's the beauty of a game that is 90% your imagination.
Yeah, agreed. So other than D&D, my mindset really is our hobby is not as welcoming as I feel it should be.
It's I remember having this conversation actually quite a while back with a friend of mine talking about Warhammer. Was it very much seems to me like they captured that original market or that original set of people when they first started back in the 80s, and they're still targeting that same group as they've got older and older, got jobs, and suddenly have disposable income. It's like they're still targeting them and forgetting about recruiting people in. Yeah. That sort of deal. And, you know, with the board game side of things, yeah, those mega boxes like Scythe, Ark Nova, Nemesis, they're not targeted at newbies. They're targeted at experienced players. Same with Kickstarter. Most of that is aimed at you, effectively.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that completely. And I had a discussion with someone the other day about all of this, and they turn around and say, oh, yeah, but things like trading card games, they're cheap enough to get into. And I respectfully disagree. I do not think that, yes, you can go and buy Pokemon starter set, and they'll be pretty good until you want to play with someone who's been playing it for more than a week.
Yep.
You know, because the second you're putting a starter deck up against anything other than a starter deck, you're going to get decimated. You know, and it's all business at the end of the day. They do that because then, now you're going to buy the expansion packs. Or now you're going to buy a different starter set. Now you're going to buy this. Now you're going to buy that. And suddenly, that initial investment, while yes, it only cost you, £15 to buy an actual starter deck and get into the game, it's not. Because I still think until you have got a competitive deck that you can play and at least stand half a chance of winning, that is where my initial investment cuts off. because I'm not going to enjoy anything if I'm just going to get spanked every single time I play a game with my starter deck or my advanced starter deck or whatever you want to call it. And then it makes me think back as like, is it a cheap hobby and stuff like that, even doing trading card games? Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. We used to play Star Wars Destiny religiously. I used to play Lightseekers. 3 to 4 releases per year of booster boxes that you had to then spend. If you wanted a full playable set, you were spending £400 to £600 on booster boxes, which then the majority of it you were just either giving away or trying to resell because all you wanted was a full playable set. That's not welcoming to new people.
Nope.
You know, and anyone that even asks, if you're anything other than honest with them when they turn and say, you know, what's the hobby like? You know, is it good? You know, if you don't let them know in advance, it's like, well, it is good, but this deck that you've built here in 3 months' time is essentially going to be useless.
Yep.
Or nowhere near competitive enough. So you're then going to have to buy even more stuff.
Well, to be honest, mate, that's one of the things that puts me off TCGs.
Yeah.
That you spend all that money getting that set and then it's useless.
Yeah. You know, we're both very, very biased on that. So I'll make that abundantly clear. Yeah, we do not like the TCG model.
No.
Just trying to be unbiased and sitting on the outside, it is not as welcoming and is not as affordable to buy into as it would seem when you go to your local supermarket and buy a Pokemon deck for £15 to £20. D&D is the only game I can see where I can safely say to someone who wants to get involved in our hobby but doesn't want to spend either any money or very little money, it's like roleplay. That's pretty much your go-to if you don't want to invest a substantial amount of money into our games. Games Workshop, James.
Yep.
I can't avoid it. They have recently announced a new game system. What's it called again?
Oh, boarding actions.
Boarding actions, James. Is this a new? It's a new game, isn't it?
I haven't actually seen that much of it because I'm not into the 40k side of things, really. So I don't really keep up with the news. You probably know more about it than I do.
So as far as I'm aware, it is a new game. It's not one of their board games. So it's definitely not that. So we're not talking Necromunda or something like that. When I first saw it, I thought it was a new version of Kill Team. But as it turns out, they've just announced a new version of Kill Team as well. But look past that because I haven't looked into that fully yet. But yeah, boarding actions.
Yep.
I have a real ip with this, James.
Do share.
I was all geared up for this episode to be more slating of Atomic Mass. Mm-hmm. But then Games Workshop just had to come along at the wrong point and announce boarding actions because, James, it's not just buying a box to get into this game, you know, because that box is going to be about £140, something like that. No, because if you buy that box, which has all those lovely miniatures in it, you essentially can't play the game because the game requires what is ultimately being billed as proprietary scenery, which ironically they happen to sell, and a dedicated game board size, which, surprise, surprise, they happen to sell. Mm-hmm. And the scenery box that you require for this game, James, is $210.
Oh, Games Workshop, why do you do this?
So
I spent the first half of this podcast defending you, damn it.
Yeah.
Although I just want to get the sneaky dig in there that it's proprietary scenery, is it, Jason?
Yeah. Let's be honest, once the game comes out and all the specifics of it are actually revealed, then let's be honest, third-party makers will be on there quicker than a rash can spread.
Yeah.
That's not everything. $210 does not get you into the game. That's just the scenery.
Uh-huh.
Then you have to have the normal 40k rulebook. So, yeah, I can't remember what that is in dollars, but around the £40-45 mark.
Yep.
Then
you have to have the Factions Codex.
Then you've got to have the Factions Codex for the faction that you're going to be playing. And then and only then, James, can you then go and buy the box with the miniatures in that you want to play. So before you've even got your miniatures, you're already in it for in the region of $300. I mean,
do you know what the actual bit that annoys me the most about that?
Go on.
The Codex.
Right.
Because if it is, what's the size of the board?
I can't remember what it is, but I know like Shatterpoint, for example, is going to be a 3x3 board.
Yeah. This
one is smaller. It's something in the region of like 2 foot by 3 foot.
2 foot by 3.
Something
so you
like
have to buy a faction codex, 90% of which will be useless.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's arguably not aimed at new players. However, this is the company that is desperately trying to get new players. And if I go into a Games Workshop store and I don't know what I'm talking about, am I going to be sold a game or a game box that has all those miniatures in it that I can then not use? Because I've then got to go back in and spend another multiple hundreds in order to get the other stuff that I need. You know, so like I said, I really wanted to highlight how expensive Atomic Mass was. And then just days later, Games Workshop just come out with this thing, and they don't make a point of telling you that you need that scenery, but make it abundantly clear that you do need that scenery because the whole game is based indoors.
Yep.
And that certain height restrictions are going to be involved, certain door restrictions are going to be involved. It's like, oh, well, as it happens, we've also made this scenery which happens to meet all of those specifications. It's like, that is basically like saying you can only use this scenery. And yeah, we all know that MDF scenery is going to come out. We all know that 3D printed stuff's going to come out. But just looking at someone who only knows of Games Workshop, only goes into the store, they're not going to buy it. It's too much.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I want to try and defend some of these companies, James.
Don't. I tried doing that in the first half of this podcast, and now you make me feel bad for it. I still think that heresy's the anomaly.
It does make you wonder.
There's some small corner of Games Workshop somewhere where someone is hiding. You know what? We're not going to screw over the fan, but the customers. Quick, get this out before someone notices.
Do you reckon that's because Games Workshop have forgotten that it's now theirs and not Forge World's anymore?
Yeah, but that theory doesn't work because if it was Forge World's, it would be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes, it's very true. I am going to try and defend people, James, because 10, 15 years ago, things were cheaper. That much is obvious. Inflation happens.
Yes.
And that's where I think a lot of this may have come from, because just last year, 2022, inflation went up by 10%.
You can defend some companies on that, not the Games Workshop, though, because their prices are well above inflation.
I would have to agree with that. And we've discussed that.
And they have been year after year after year. There's no way that their price increases are keeping step with inflation. They're way above it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I can see, really, as to why things might be more expensive this year. But is that really representative of that 10% inflation increase? Like, let's go back to Atomic Mass Games and Shatterpoint, because the Marvel Crisis Protocol starter set is still £99.99.
Yeah.
And yet the Star Wars Shatterpoint one, which is arguably pretty much the same game with a few changes.
Yep.
Same amount of miniatures, same amount of scenery, is roughly translated into £133.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say £35 more expensive. I'm not sure I understand that calculation.
Mm-hmm.
There's some calculations that until we know more information just don't add up. But the question still stands, James. This hobby, is it too expensive to get new people in?
I think it's difficult to get new people in. I still don't think it's crossed that mark where it is impossible.
Really, the reason we're asking this is we're at a time right now where everything's tight. We are still in this financial crisis around the world, and yet they're putting their prices up. People are getting less money. Just the other day, James, we had the biggest walkout in history in the UK, and that really says something considering how bad this country used to be.
Yep.
And it's all overpay. People just can't afford to live at the moment. And yet these hobbies, which are, let's be honest, our only getaway from real life, it's our escape from real life, is becoming more and more hard to obtain.
Yeah.
I'll make this one of my last questions to you. Do you feel like hobby companies, and this is all hobbies, do you feel like they have a responsibility to actually provide that kind of enjoyment to people at more reasonable prices? I know that's a very hard question.
That is a very hard question. I don't think it is a very hard question, and I might surprise you with the answer.
Okay.
No, I don't think they're obliged to do that.
Okay.
I think they make the mistake, and then it's not just hobby companies. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of thinking that it's the rich that keep them going. And I disagree with that mindset. It's regular Joe spending his bit, because there's a hell of a lot more regular Joes than there are. When we talk about the rich, it's called the top 1% for a reason. There aren't that many of them.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like most of these places are kept alive by regular Joe. He might not be putting in thousands of pounds. He might only be putting in 10 or 20, but he's going to put that 10 or 20 in regularly.
Yeah, like you said, your top 1% man might be putting in £1,000 a month.
Yep.
But regular Joe puts in £100 a month, and there's 10 regular Joes to every top 1%.
Yep.
Arguably, I'd say there's 20 regular Joes.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that. It's like try 100 regular Joes to one.
Yeah.
Like it's average Joe. I think there's so many things where that is the case, and the companies just seem to get it into their mind though. It's like, no, Mr. 1% man is the target.
Yeah.
It's like Mr. 1% man likes to shop in exclusive shops, or 1% woman, equal opportunities, but they shop in exclusive shops. They like having things that regular Joe doesn't have. It's going back, this is a very UK centric thing with the high street.
Yep.
Why is the high street dying? Because regular Joe doesn't shop there anymore. It's like, it's not that, the rich guys stopped going there. You could argue they never went there.
Yeah.
Ferrari and Prada aren't on the high street.
True. Very, very true indeed. So yeah, James, I mean, in summary here, I think we do differ a little bit on this. Your opinion really on whether the hobby is too expensive as a whole seems to be, it's not, but it is. Whereas for me, I know I'm solidly in the camp of this hobby is too expensive. It's not very welcoming in the sense of monetary investment. And I think even for people that are already still in the game, into the games, just on the board game front, people deem 60 to 80 pounds for a game as the absolute limit. And yet we're seeing the percentage of games above that 80 pound bracket and well into towards the 200 bracket now is increasing, and the games below the £60 bracket are decreasing.
Yeah.
That, I feel, is a trend that needs to change quickly. It goes back to what we were talking about in the episode about Kickstarter being, deluxeified components. Yeah, we all love them, but I think it might be time to start having the options of not quite so many deluxeified components with a much more competitive price that's more welcoming to new people.
Indeed. My closing thing is going to be, after looking at prices from around the world, I'm glad I'm not Australian.
Yes. Yeah. For context, Shatterpoint.
Yep.
$164 in the US. We worked it out to be about £133 in the UK. I found out today, just about an hour or so before we went live recording, $294 for the core box alone. Do you know what, Australians, guys? You guys have my sympathy and respect.
I mean, I've known about this for a while because I've seen the multitude of videos about how expensive Games Workshop products are in Australia. It's like,
yeah,
I feel for you guys.
I am amazed there is any form of tabletop hobby over there down
that isn't indigenous.
Yeah,
effectively.
Yeah, exactly. But talking about not being very welcoming to the hobby in regards to price, James, should we hand over to the newsman who's going to tell me how to spend more money?
Let's do it.
Over to you, Paul.
What are you doing? Why on earth are you packing? Moving? Who said anything about moving? Me? I can pretty much guarantee you, young man, I said nothing of the sort. Oh, I see. Nope, you got the wrong end of the stick there, chap. I didn't mean as in you and I moving, I meant the show is... Oops, may have said too much there. We'll leave that for the boss to tell everyone, methinks. I'll tell you later. Well, just pretend I haven't said anything. Exactly. This conversation never happened. What were we doing? Oh yeah, the news. Hit it. Usually when board game publishers want to do playtesting, they will select a few small, reliable groups and either send them prototype components or arrange to have them play online, such as on Tabletop Simulator. However, Old Rack Entertainment Group, or AEG to most of you, has decided to go public with playtesting for the newest expansion for the family-friendly dice rolling adventure that is Space Base. The expansion up for playtesting is going under the working title of Genesis. In a forum posting on Board Game Geek, John D. Clare, the designer of Space Base, Mystic Vale and Ready Set Bet, has provided a downloadable PDF file that contains the rules for the expansion, as well as artless versions of the new cards. John D. Clare has asked that everyone who does take him up on playtesting this expansion please leave feedback in the forum thread. Of note, he's particularly asking players to make sure proportions of money, income or points hasn't gotten too far off track, and to identify and fix any boring, confusing, overpowered or underpowered new cards. Genesis is designed to be a simple expansion that can be used by both new and experienced players. While there are a few new actions, they work similarly to the ones in the base game in order to cut down complexity. The cards are shuffled into their respective decks, and there is no saga experience like there was in the previous two expansions, the emergence of Shy Pluto and the mysteries of Terra Proxima. In 2019, Fun Again Logistics and Distribution was created when Fun Again Fulfillment bought and merged with both Ship Naked and Hit Point Sales. At the time, the idea was to expand Fun Again's campaign logistics service and allow them to have a greater global fulfillment capabilities. On January 16th, the company announced on their Twitter page that they will be ceasing operations as of April the 30th, 2023, and will no longer be offering any fulfillment, storage, or distribution services. The decision was made due to the increasing costs of operational costs, preventing the company from moving forwards as it wanted to. Fun Again will continue to process all pending projects that are in the warehouse and web store orders until March the 3rd, 2023, after which they will stop all fulfillments and shift their employees' focus to shutting down their warehouse. It is important to note that while the logistics and distribution portion of Fun Again is ceasing operations, the remaining Fun Again divisions, the website, brick and mortar stores and game business will remain operational. The 2014 Kennerspiel winner, Istanbul, is being revisited this year in a new version, Istanbul Choose and Write. Like many award winners, Istanbul already received its own dice version back in 2017, with Rudiger Dorn returning with his card-based flip and write game. Each player will have a bazaar in front of them, and each of the shops can only be visited a certain number of times throughout the game. Players will play cards in order to take actions on shops adjacent to their player piece, or they can take a card to take unique actions available only to them. As in its big brother, players are ultimately trying to exchange resources and actions for rubies. Istanbul Choose and Write is slated for a release sometime this year from Beckische Spiel, engaging 1 to 5 players in around 30 to 45 minutes. Stonemaier Games have already brought us expansions to its 1920s dieselpunk adventure Scythe, but what fans really want is a sequel. Well, your prayers have been answered, and you really won't have to wait too long either as we return to war-torn 1920s Europa. Scythe Expeditions sees Mr. Stagmeyer back as designer and artist Jakub Rolauski's unique artwork continue the aesthetics. While investigating a crashed meteor near the Tunguska River in Siberia, you've accidentally awoken an ancient corruption. An expedition led by Dr. Tarkovsky ventures into the Taiga to learn more about the meteorite and its impact on the land. Itching for adventure, heroes from the war privately fund their own expeditions to Siberia, hoping to find artifacts, overcome challenges, and ultimately achieve glory. Expeditions is a competitive, card-driven, engine-building game of exploration. Play cards to gain power, guile, and unique worker abilities. Move your mech to mysterious locations and gain cards found among the tiles. Use workers, items, meteorites, and quests to enhance your mech and use power and guile to vanquish corruption. On their turn, players will move their action token to cover one of the 3 possible actions: move, play, or gather, and then execute the remaining uncovered actions. Or you can take the refresh action in order to regain all the cards you have previously played. You play cards to gain the benefit at the top of the card, but if you place a specific worker on the card, you also get the special action listed on it as well. Like Scythe, players will be competing to be the first to place 4 glory tokens on a board of 7 different categories. Once a player places their 4th token, each player gets one final turn before endgame scoring occurs, and the player with the most points is the winner. Expeditions supports 1 to 5 players, aged 14 and over, with an estimated playtime of between 60 and 90 minutes. You can pre-order the game at Stonemaier Games web store until February the 15th. Pre-orders are estimated to be fulfilled in July, with August seeing both a Gen Con release followed by a retail store release. As if getting Scythe Expeditions ready for release this year isn't enough, another title from the Stonemaier camp sees a release this first quarter. Dubbed the 3rd and final expansion, Fantasies and Futures is the next release for Chris Scafaldi and Mike Young's strategy civ builder, Tapestry. The expansion gives players the opportunity to build civilizations using fantasy and sci-fi inspired civilizations, technology, tapestries and cities, which may include delving into parallel universes. Tapestry, Fantasies and Futures contains 10 new civilizations, 38 new tapestry cards, 12 new tech cards, and a comprehensive rulebook that organises all rules for Tapestry and the 3 expansions into one volume. Some of the new Tapestry cards include a new charm mechanism that provides one-time bonuses, while other Tapestry and tech cards include exciting payoffs reserved for the final income turn. Fantasies and Futures is fully compatible with any combination of the core game, the other Tapestry expansions, and the natural rubber playmat. And it comes packaged in an eco-friendly, recyclable envelope. Game fans from Down Under can rejoice as a partnership between Funko Games, Big Wheel Toys and Let's Play Games in order to bring their products to Australia and New Zealand. That's right, the entire roster of Funko Games collection of Funkoverse titles and expansions and... what were we calling them? Oh yeah, Expand-Alones will finally be hitting your shores. A statement released said these partnerships are the latest moves for Funko Games as it continues to grow its worldwide presence and connect more families and fans through immersive board game experiences. It's not often that a roll and write version of a game is released at the same time as the board game itself, but that's exactly what's happening with Woodcraft, as we see the imaginatively titled Woodcraft Roll and Write hit our tables. Designed by Ross Arnold and Vladimir Sushi and published by Delicious Games, Woodcraft Roll and Write sees players owning their own woodworking shop. At the beginning of each round, 3 yellow and 3 brown dice will be rolled. Both dice represent available wood, and the yellow dice being of lesser quality than the brown. Players will then choose a die in order to gain resources, then compete as many free actions as they want, in any order they want. This includes using resources to manipulate the die values, hiring helpers to get additional abilities, and completing orders. Each player gets 2 turns per round, and after the 6th round the game is over. Players score any victory points gained during play, points for their helpers, reputation gained from completing orders, marked off crates and lanterns gained. The player with the most points is the winner. Woodcraft Roll and Write will support 1 to 5 players with an estimated time of around 30 to 40 minutes. Oh, and did I forget to mention, and I probably should, is that you can, indeed, download this game for free from the Delicious Games website. That's right, free games. And that's from the Woodcraft product page over at deliciousgames.org. All one word, deliciousgames.org. And here's our main news story this week, and I know we heard from Jason and James last week on the highs and lows of crowdfunding. I mean, I've personally, out of the close to 100 pledges, have only ever had one fail to deliver, which going by the odds is pretty good. But as we all know it, it is, in the long run, a risk. But what happens when a company, known for successful campaigns, goes and screws over their staff that they've employed while still attempting to fund a project on the platform? The UK board game studio behind crowdfunding success stories Subterra and Alba has been accused by former employees of unpaid wages, missing pensions and redundancy pay, with the criticism aired via the company's very own Kickstarter account. Serves them right for not changing the password quick enough, doesn't it? Inside the Box Board Games is best known for Subterra, its cooperative cave-crawling board game that crowdfunded over £368,000 from more than 6,600 backers in early 2017. A sequel, Subterra 2 Inferno's Edge, raised almost $292,000 from 3,500 backers in early 2021. With those aside, Inside the Box's most backed project to date is Alba, an ambitious open-world adventure gamebook that was funded by over 10,000 supporters in February 2021, raising close to £273,000. In total, Inside the Box's 8 successful Kickstarter projects, which also include dystopian deduction game Newspeak and a political card game Statecraft, have raised over £1.1 million to date. Both Subterra 2 and Alba are yet to see copies sent to Kickstarter backers, joining 2 other projects that are reportedly yet to be delivered. Underwater worker placement board game Aquanauts, funded in April 2020, and story-driven puzzle game Crypt X, funded in July 2019. However, in a January 28th update, Inside the Box CEO Peter Blenkarn wrote that progress has been made on shipping and fulfillment, saying that more information would follow by the end of February. Inside the Box's own account was seemingly accessed by a disgruntled former employee later that same day to direct a message at Blenkarn, claiming that staff were owed thousands in unpaid wages, pensions and redundancy. In a separate update post entitled Pay Your Ex-Employees, Peter posted to the Alba, Subterra 2 and Crypt X Kickstarter pages. Inside the Box's Kickstarter creator account wrote, Peter still owes his employees wages, missing pension and redundancies. In the comments section for the campaigns, the company account posted a follow-up message claiming to be from a former employee. Ex-employee here, he still owes us money for pensions, wages and redundancy. We're all out of thousands. He's completely refused to communicate with us. He shouldn't be allowed near another business. He'll probably change his password soon, but please spread the word about this disaster. I feel for everyone here. Peter, grow some balls, you're a mess. And as of Sunday, 5th of February, posts and comments remain live on the Kickstarter pages, and from the look of things, they're continuing to grow. Well, with that being said, we are going to go and slide ever so gingerly over into this week's crowdfunding project, but this time we're heading for GameFound for a change. We knew it was coming. It's already funded by over 1,000%, and if its spiritual predecessor, Dwellings of Eldervale, has anything to go by, we are in for a treat. Behold, Andromeda's Edge, designed by Dwellings designer Luke Laurie along with Maximus Laurie, artwork by returning Sergio Chaves, and being published by Cardboard Alchemy and Lucky Duck Games. The game is for 1 to 5 players, running approximately 40 minutes per player and looking at a 14 and over age range. Andromeda's Edge is a dazzling, uncharted region of space on the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy, littered with the modular debris of the precursor civilization, patrolled by malicious extragalactic raiders and bordered by a dense nebulae. The Edge is a last resort for the brave and foolhardy who seek a new life beyond the oppressive reach of the Lords of Unity. In this game, you lead a desperate faction seeking to build new civilizations on Andromeda's Edge. You begin with only a space station, a few ships and a handful of resources. By carefully placing your ships, you will gather resources, claim moons, acquire modules to add to your station, populate planets and build developments on them. You will battle opponents and compete with others to ascend the progress tracks: science, industry, commerce, civilization, and supremacy. So on your turn, you either launch a starship or return your ships to the station. Launching sends one of your starships to a region of Andromeda, either collecting resources from planetary systems or taking actions at Alliance bases. If the region is occupied by your opponents or fearsome raiders, face off in a dice battle, with supremacy on the line, but where the strategic manipulation can turn a loss into a reward. Returning to your station, however, allows you to activate your engine, using your modules you've acquired to generate energy, gain resources, and carry out additional actions. Throughout the game, you will build up your unique faction, building developments, observatories, factories, spaceports, cities and obelisks, and gaining station modules, which move you up the progress tracks. Advancement on the tracks is rewarded both during mid-game events and at the conclusion, and is the key to victory. The project has 3 main pledge levels as well as a retailer pledge. First up is the Standard Edition, coming in at around £56, which gets you the main game, the Escalation expansion, access to selected add-ons included in the bigger pledges, and applicable stretch goals. Next up is the Deluxe Pledge, coming in at around £105, which gets you the deluxe version of the game, replacing standees with plastic miniatures. You get a game trays insert as along with player trays, as well as stretch goals, expansion and add-ons access. Or you can go all in for around £155. This gets you the deluxe version of the game, as described, but now includes all add-ons available, which include additional factions, card sleeves, dice trays, dice, component upgrades, additional expansion, and a drinks coaster. Together with priority shipping thrown in so you get your games ahead of the pack when it fulfills in June 2024. The project is live now and ends on the 23rd of February 2023. Brian, before I inform you as to what's happening, we have to say goodbye to everyone, okay? All will be explained, but for now, just say goodbye. And it's a goodbye from me. Keep safe, Meeples. Keep those dice rolling, the cards shuffling, and we'll be right back here for you at some point next week. Okay, I'll tell you now. Let's just turn the recording software off first, okay?
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you guys for joining us once again for another rather impromptu topical discussion. James, how did this one go?
Yeah, it went all right.
It's tough. I find these ones tough. I really do. I hate doing impromptu ones because it usually means that I'm angry about something.
Yes.
And I need to rage. But I think this is something that does need to change. We need to get that trend of getting this hobby more accessible to more people.
Yeah.
And people just can't afford that kind of money.
It is. I mean, it's also the semantic question, I suppose, isn't it? Of, is the hobby too expensive, or are external factors making it more expensive? I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, but are external factors making that entry point harder?
Yeah. I mean, this is, it's contrary to what I've just been saying, actually, but when it comes to buying board games or buying war games or whatever it be, is that if you can't afford it, don't buy it. That's the long and short of it. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. It doesn't work so well with war games, but as you said earlier, board game wise, there is usually ways that you can find games, and you can play games at either totally free or at very minimal cost. It does, as nice as it is to own these things, you don't have to own them.
Yes.
War games, I fully appreciate. You want to play a war game, you kind of need.
You might get lucky and find someone who's got more than one army that's willing to lend it to you, but that's not going to be a permanent thing.
No, exactly. You can try the second-hand market. Obviously, that doesn't work with brand new game systems like we've been talking about today with Star Wars Shatterpoint and boarding actions. But 40K's been around for donkey's years. There are a multitude of people that sell on their armies. They may not be the best, but it's a cheaper way of getting into the hobby.
Yep.
Because if you can get your base stuff, it's far easier to then spend little and often by buying a unit every month.
It's that thing, or it depends on how, an established war game, obviously the Games Workshop products are the easiest ones with that, but other war games are like that, use the same model, where it is depending on how quickly you want, it's we've done episodes on it before, it's also not letting FOMO take hold.
Yeah.
Buy a component, a unit, or a book per month.
Yeah.
You don't have to go immediately all in on that shiny £200 box.
Yeah. And I'm probably the worst person to say these words, but living within your means is vitally important.
Yes.
Hobbies are great and really do help with, your mental health and taking you out of real life, as we said. But don't do it where it's actually going to affect your real life. And as I said, I am the worst person and I hold my hands up to it. I spend way too much money on this hobby to the point that I get 2 weeks away from payday and I'm looking at my bank account and going, I need food, I need fuel, and I've got to make a choice between the two. I am genuinely one of the worst. But if anything, just learn from idiots like me and actually listen and say, don't buy these things if you cannot physically afford them. There are ways to get into this hobby without investing that money. As I said, pains me to admit it because I'm not a D&D fan, but D&D is a great way to get into tabletop gaming. Why not do a campaign and then save money to then buy something else?
Yep.
There are a multitude of options, but there you go. Financial advice from the Meeple Minded.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought it?
I know. I mean, I've got a lot better with that. There was a time where it's like I would have impulse bought an entire 3,000 point army for a Warhammer faction without even breaking a sweat, and then going.
I miss these times, James.
Yes,
I do.
I am a lot better now, and going. No, I bought the core box. I'm going to paint the core box.
I have a feeling that my board game collection wouldn't be anywhere near as big if you still had that addiction.
No, it wouldn't.
Because you would have bought a lot of these games as well.
Yep.
Which would have saved me having to buy them.
I have got it under control.
Yes. I don't think I'll ever get mine under control. Especially when you got a partner going, oh yeah, that's not too bad.
You're supposed to dissuade me, not feed the habit.
It is a habit.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
But that's at the end of the day, that's like, I have great fun in poking your addiction now, because it's like the amount of times you turn around to me, Jason, and go, talk me out of this. And I just go, you're talking to the wrong person, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great friend you are, James.
Talk me out of this. Don't do it.
Okay, I'll do it. Oh, dear. There we go. Anyway, I'm going to need to go, mate, because I'm feeling that I'm going to have a coughing fit again. You wouldn't even want to know how many times we've had to pause this recording.
Yep.
But yes, on those notes, till next week, I have been Jason.
And I've been James.
And you have been listening to the Meeple Minded podcast. Join us next week for more tabletop gaming goodness. Ta-ta. Goodbye.